Good evening everyone, welcome back to Tom Plays EU4 for absolute beginners. We are back with England and we are preparing to invade France, or at least for the 100 Years' War to kick off again. So, armies and navies. We actually have two armies and two navies here, but two of the navies are in the same place. So if we just left click on one of them. Okay, so this navy is not actually intended for war. There are four types of ships in the game. You've got heavy, light, galleys and transport. And the light ships are really more intended to protect trade and do missions. So rather than move them about manually like we will with our main navy, we actually tend to come down here to select mission. The only mission available with no DLC is protect trade. And what this basically does, we've actually been moved to the trade map, third one along. There are a number of different trade areas, and we make a certain amount of money from each of them. And moving ships there will increase the amount of power we have in each area, trade node as they call them, and will generally just make us more money. We don't need to worry about it in detail at the moment, but what you will find is if you hover over the send button, it will give an estimate of how much profit you'll make if you send the current ships to this area. And the best one of the four at the moment is Lubeck. So we're going to select Lubeck. The other thing it's important to select, because these aren't intended for combat, is go to port during war. Once you click it, you get the moving lines around it to show that it's chosen, and now if a war kicks off they should try to make it to a friendly port and out of danger as soon as they can. Generally speaking, you always want to do that with trade ships. Okay, so we just had an event. I'll just pause. We're going to get a bunch of these. They tend to appear right in the middle of the screen for some reason, and a lot of them aren't very important. This one doesn't affect us much. It's talking about the Holy Roman Empire, which will be important later, but all it's saying is that they're in danger of losing some of their Italian states, which is good news for us if they do, but we can't affect it and it doesn't affect us much. Okay, so the trade ships have set off on the mission, so they're out of the way. We're left with our remaining navy, which is made up of 6 heavy ships and 17 transports. Each transport can basically transport 1,000 troops, so we can move our 2 armies across the channel one at a time, but not both together. The 6 heavy ships are good for war, and 6 at the start of the game is pretty good. Basically, we can assume that we're going to win any naval battles. The difference between the heavy ships and the galleys, they're both fighting ships. The galleys are designed for inland seas. They get a slight advantage. It does actually say that on the little note that pops up. However, as England, we don't have that many inland seas. I mean, we've got the Channel, these areas, but a lot of the time we're going to be travelling all around the world. So galleys honestly aren't much use to us, and the game's given us a hint of that by not giving us any to start with. So this is our central navy. The one other thing we could probably do is sorting out, only we can't yet, is getting a leader. At the moment it has no leader, but we would have to recruit one. The reason we want a leader is that any army, any navy is vastly more effective if it has even a bad leader compared to no leader at all. You can actually see leaders, they appear as little stars, but I can't see any at the moment in the other countries, so it looks like we're all leaderless right now. Probably because I've only let the clock move very slightly. But if we go to our first army, we will actually find that we have a leader waiting for us, John Talbot. He's actually a very good leader. 2 stars have appeared here. That's far better than any leader we're likely to get for a while after he dies. So we're very lucky to have him, and we're going to be counting on him a lot in our invasion. But as a general rule, you should always try to have a leader. maybe not as much on the navies because naval combat isn't as important, but we always want one in our armies, always. That's interesting. Reassign this leader from Royal Army to Royal Army. Okay, that's not exactly a reassignment. Okay, so like the ships, there are 3 types of troops. We've got the infantry, the cavalry and the artillery. We start the game with no artillery. We can't build them. They haven't been invented as such, or at least not brought into regular use. As a general rule, in every army you want 4 cavalry. So at the moment with no artillery, we're just going to be having 4 cavalry and the rest infantry. One of our armies has 5 cavalry, 1 too many. One has 3 cavalry, 1 too few. It's not really a problem, as France's army is likely to be so terrifying that we're going to have to combine our armies anyway and just put up with having 8 cavalry. But they probably won't be fully effective. We have a lot of options with the army itself. The one we're most concerned with at the moment is up here, attached to transport, which basically means board the boats. Choose that. It's now in red. And if we then pick up the boat, we can move it, like right click anywhere where it can go. So obviously not anywhere central, but anywhere on the coast. And it has taken our troops with it. It's ferrying our troops across. Okay, we pause again because there's another thing to consider with the military. We have a shield and a military tab. Lots of stuff on here. The most important thing, certainly right now, it does actually show our leaders as well, and the limit to the number of leaders we're allowed to have. 2 army, 2 navy. That can change with power projection and also with time, technology, various things. But at the moment we will start to lose military power if we have too many. Would it be diplomatic power for Navy? It might be diplomatic power for Navy. Diplomacy is often associated with the navies. But that's unlikely to happen anyway. The armies are generally more important. And the most important thing on here is this land force limit. We are only allowed to have, at the moment, up to 36,000 troops. If we go beyond that, we will start to have really serious financial issues. It can be quite crippling. So while we do want to get up to 36, we don't want to go higher. The Navy has a similar thing, but it tends to be more forgiving, so you can kind of get away with going above. However, because we currently only have 28 troops and we can have 36, we could do with getting some more. So if I close this, next to the shield there's a production interface. Click on this. There are a few things you can produce or buy, but it's taking us to where we want to be, land units. And we don't want any more cavalry, we have plenty, but we do want more infantry. So if we click on infantry, it's taken us to a slightly different map, and we just choose where we want them to be built. If you choose the same province twice, they will be built sequentially. So it would take, if we did all of these in one place, they would take 4 times as long. I think that actually fits quite well with history, because what we're basically saying is giving our barons some money for wages and telling them to round up some of their peasants to fight in the war. Obviously it's better to ask 4 barons to find 1,000 peasants each than to ask 1 baron to find 4,000. It's bound to take longer. We could do with having the full 36, so I'm actually considering taking a loan. Loans can be a little dangerous. Mostly, send the ships back to get the rest of the army, mostly because they can easily get out of hand if you have too many, but we are going to have to push the boat out a bit if we want to take France. So we would be better off actually taking the risk in getting one. In the meantime, how are we doing over here? No change, okay. Let's keep going. Okay, brilliant. I think that's the sign that the diplomacy is finished. Okay, so we've got 2 things. This is an alert we get when someone else offers us an alliance, which is brilliant because this is what we wanted. An alliance offer from Austria. We've also had this. This is the warning of the upcoming War of the Roses. This is going to be unpleasant when and if it hits. We should be able to slow it down by, if we can increase our stability to 1, that will at least make it take longer and give us a better chance of avoiding it. Avoiding it altogether, we probably require Henry VI to have an heir, and we can't control that. So while we could raise stability to slow it down, it is inevitably going to come at the moment. If I click on it, I mean, it says it's going to be March 1448. There's actually a little bar that fills up here in red. So these are the disasters that can happen to England, and War of the Roses we were pretty much doomed to from the start, but it could be averted if Henry happens to have an heir. Unfortunately, we can't control that particularly. We've had a bunch of royal marriages, which in theory should help, but otherwise there isn't a huge amount we can do. Okay, actually I was going to pause again. The fact that Austria has offered us an alliance probably means we can now offer Aragon an alliance. Nope, 12th of December. Okay. That won't take very long, I don't think. Okay, Castile has offered us a royal marriage, which is great because I was going to ask them for one. We'll give Aragon an alliance. We will offer a royal marriage to Portugal. So the other thing we really want to start doing is improving our relations with people. So we take Austria. We have another option here, improve relation. This is what you tend to want your diplomats to do when they're not doing anything else. There's always another country we can improve our relation with. It basically improves this score, what they think of us. But the reason we especially want it for the larger nations we've allied is because the higher their opinion of us, the more likely they are to join in our war with France when it kicks off. Okay, I'm thinking it might be worth us trying to ally Brittany as well. It'll take us 1 over our limit. And I seriously doubt they'll be willing to join in fighting France. But we can try. Okay, so we've actually got an heir, which is brilliant. That might avert the War of the Roses altogether, so we've been quite lucky there. This is irrelevant to us, as is that pretty much. Okay, let's improve relations with Castile, improve relations with Aragon. We can't. Okay, let's improve relations with Portugal. We also can't. Okay, right. I'm going to want a royal marriage with Brittany anyway. Right, our troops have been made. Brittany has requested a royal marriage, which is great. I'm just pausing because I'm going to go into our finance screen. I'm going to risk taking a loan. We were already losing money, now we're losing even more money because of the interest on the loan, but it does give us the money we need to buy 4 more infantry, which should take us up to our limit. And improve relation with Aragon. So we've got a new alert appearing. This is telling us we've got too many diplomatic relations. It's going to cost us 1 diplomatic power each month. It also acts as a handy way while we've got it to check our current relationships, which tells us we've got alliances and royal marriages with everyone, which is what we want. And we've also got something popped up to tell us that we've got a loan. Yeah, we need to keep an eye on this. 1 loan is fine, but if we let it get up to... I've had a situation where I've had like 30 loans, and you can come back from that, but it's miserable. It really ruins the game. Okay, on the finance screen there is actually something else we need to do. We've got an option to raise war taxes. So anytime there's a war, it'll cost us military power, but it will help with our costs And seeing as we're already losing money and we'll lose even more money in a war, I think it's probably worth doing at the moment. I might turn it off later when we're doing a bit better financially. But at the moment, the current state of affairs, probably best not to risk it. Okay, our War of the Roses warning is actually gone. So that's one more thing we don't have to worry about. It could well come back. But at the moment, while Henry VI has an heir, it's been put on hold. So let's just hope everyone stays alive. Okay, brilliant. So we're improving the 3 biggest countries. Improving their opinions of us. Let's send those two to join their respective armies. Let's get a leader for the Navy this time, since we can now afford it. Recruit an admiral. And we're probably as ready as we will ever be. So I'm not getting a second leader for our second army because I'm going to combine them all into one army. It's going to be far too many horses, cavalry, but this is a combination tool. Let's make them all into one army. But France really can field a pretty astonishing sized army, to the point that we might end up trying to get mercenaries as well for ours. Okay, now the reason I haven't combined them yet is because when you have an army selected, if you hover over any province, you can see something called a supply limit. That is the biggest army you can leave in that province without them taking damage, basically. So the biggest we've got is 31, so we can't combine these armies or we would be taking damage even before we start fighting. And no one wants that. I don't mind combining them once we're attacking France, because you take damage in enemy territory anyway. And we can't see it at the moment, but Chartres and Paris both have castles, which we're going to have to siege. And you tend to finish a siege faster the more people you have. Okay, how is Paris doing? They have an alliance with Switzerland. Okay, so they've ditched Provence, but they're now allied with Switzerland over here. I would say Switzerland is no more powerful than Provence, probably less if anything, because Provence is sort of all over the place, whereas Switzerland, it's just these 5 provinces, I think. So that's actually good news in itself. Okay, so the cardinals, I kind of skipped past it last time, but I believe the ruler of a papal state, who is basically the Pope, these lands over here, and also for some reason Avignon, they can decide where to send cardinals or promote people to cardinal, and it's a big boon to that country. So Genoa has just got a new cardinal, but they're linked to the place, I think, rather than the actual country, so I suppose if you took the place you would get the cardinal as well. The reason that's important to a Catholic nation is that if you have a cardinal, you start gaining papal influence down here. So this is the papacy screen, and it's telling us that we're gaining papal influence because we have a cardinal. Oh, and apparently we gain more because the papal state likes us, so that's worth looking into. There are a few reasons to want papal influence. We will cover them when we get there, I think, rather than covering them now, but it is a good thing, so getting a cardinal is not a bad thing. It sounds like we have 1 at the moment. Okay, if we check on military screen now, we should find that we're on the limit. So generally speaking, green is good, yellow is neutral, and red is bad. So we've got yellow because we're exactly on the limit, whereas green meant that we had some breathing room. But I'm not particularly concerned. Okay, now given that the War of the Roses has temporarily gone away, I think rather than raising stability to 1, we should focus on that agenda we were given to raise London's base tax to 9. So if we left click on London, so we can have, we've gone straight to London the province here. We could also go to London the region, which includes 4 provinces in this case. Usually we actually want the actual province, but it seems a bit random which one it gives you when you click, so it's worth knowing they both exist and sometimes can have the same name, but we want the one on the left. And this is where we can raise the base tax. So it's currently 7, we want to get it to 9. It's going to cost us admin power, so if we click here, that's taking it to 8. We've also got base production and base manpower. So, as well as being useful for fulfilling this mission the clergy have given us, base tax means we will get more taxes, which especially in London is a good thing because that's one of our more highly taxed places. Base production will allow us to manufacture more, which becomes more important later on when we do more trade. Still gives us money now. Also apparently helps us to build ships. And manpower we already know about. It helps with our manpower pool, which at the moment we're recovering 249 people a month. If we increase this, that would go up slightly. And we can increase it in every province. There are other effects. I think manpower would affect the supply limit. Make it a little higher so it can be useful if you're struggling with a supply limit. There are a few things we can do. One thing that's worth bearing in mind early in the game though is that raising the base tax will allow us to get more money, which can be useful when you're losing money every month. If you don't know what to do about it, one of the options is to go into your provinces and start raising, especially these two, and especially that one, because in the early game taxes are really important. In our case, I'm not worrying too much about losing money because I'm kind of counting on gaining money by conquering France. So I'm just going to speed up a little. Here we go. So surrender and main has happened, or rather it hasn't. We promised to do it, we're not going to do it. Charles VII has actually shown up at Maine demanding we surrender it, and we are going to refuse. If we succeeded, we lose prestige and stability. Remember, we should never go below 0. I'm sure we could raise it again if we needed to, but we're not doing it. Let's surrender Maine. We definitely want to pause because a bunch of things have come up. Okay, so we have gained an alert for our mission fulfilled. That's this one on the right, and when we choose it we gain some permanent claims. They're basically, we can argue that certain bits of land belong to us, so that's a nice little bonus, although we're hoping to take the whole of France, not just some land from them. Still, it's an option. Another one that's come up is the fact that we're at war, which is fine, that's what we expected. And another one that's come up is that we can call allies. So that's a little disappointing because it looks like only Castile and Portugal are willing to join in at the moment. But if we click on this, it's taking us to Castile, and we've got another option here, call to arms. It's got the usual checkbox saying why they will and won't do it, but we just click it and confirm, and Castile is now in the war with us. Close that, choose again, it takes us to Portugal, call to arms, confirm. They didn't seem as keen. And we're going to move all of our armies onto Chartres. I'm going to move my ships down here. And we've gained some conquest things, and we've gained a new little shield. Now people are claiming things on us. Down here to show our allies and enemies. So we've just got Switzerland and France and her vassals, and on our side we have Castile and Portugal. We should be able to find out why Austria isn't joining in. Right, their manpower's too low and their army strength, so hopefully they will join in time, especially if we keep improving their opinion of us, as we are doing. But we've got Castile and Portugal. They have Switzerland, so I think we're getting the better of the two. Why is Aragon not joining in? Attitude towards enemies, so basically like France. Brittany I didn't really expect to join in. Okay, so France's attitude towards England means they're scared of us, and their attitude towards enemies means they like France. So, fair enough. Still, the main thing is, no Scotland, which is going to make this far easier. Okay, so Castile's gone straight for a fight. They will, if I can click on this so you can see it in more detail, they will have an advantage because we have a castle here. Unfortunately, it's not going to be enough because France's army is just terrifying. But congrats to Castile for at least fighting them on a friendly castle, because that always gives you an advantage. Right, Offaly have insulted us. It's one of the Irish nations. Somewhere around here. There we go. They do that basically to increase their power projection. We could insult them back. We could also attack them. It's given us what they call a casus belli, a reason for war. Sorry, they're there. But we're busy. We're very busy. I don't really mind if they want to gain some power projection by, you know, insulting us. Okay, so we should merge these armies so they're both under the general. So normally when you go into a space, if you wait long enough, you will automatically take it over. In this case, Chartres has a castle. So when you open it up, you can see down here the chance of them surrendering, of us taking the land. The advantage of taking a castle, even though it's a bit of a pain, is that it's hard to take back. The enemy then has to do the same thing we had to do. It also has an effect on what they call the war score, which is just below the shield, how close we are to winning. At the moment it's in red and showing -1%, which means that the computer thinks France is winning, probably because they just defeated Castile in a battle. Taking a castle will affect that in a way that taking land won't so much. You Cardinal, not really relevant. So, as well as the -49% chance of them surrendering, so it needs to be above 0 for there to be any chance of it happening, there's also a chance of something happening every time the siege phase changes, which is about to happen. You might see something pop up on the area itself to say what happened. Supply shortage, so that's made it slightly more likely that they will surrender. You can see what all the chances are. 50% chance of another supply shortage. Disease outbreak is bad, that harms our army. Food shortage is less likely, but will make things have more effect, I think, than a supply shortage in general. No chance of a water shortage or the defenders deserting, and certainly no chance of surrender. Basically, it's just a waiting game. Okay, so a bunch of areas have been occupied by France, and people are making claims. This is basically people have sent spies into England, and they've come up with some spurious documents saying that they have a right to Calais in this case. It will give them a casus belli, a reason to attack us, and it will also make it easier for them to make what they call coring the province, making it a core, which kind of means getting it accepted as a natural part of France, not just occupied territory. Holland has also claimed Calais. Brabant has claimed Calais. They can all fight over it, but they have to fight us first. So this is quite common. We'll start doing this ourselves at some point. Tyrone has also insulted us. That's another Irish nation. I think just because they realise we're unlikely to retaliate. It is risky though, because we could use this as an excuse to send the troops in. So France is trying to take our castle here, -14% chance, and we're trying to take their castle there, -42% chance. So they're probably going to finish long before we do. Whereas they got Bordeaux without any issues. It's got blue lines on, as has Maine, to indicate it is currently occupied by France. We would not find it difficult to take that back. And if they move those troops and the castle stop being under siege, the castle itself will also take back adjacent provinces. But for now, we're just stuck waiting. I've moved our ships here because it's one of the few areas of coast that France has, and it's currently blockading that area, which you can see by the red line. It also has trapped these ships here. Not that they're formidable, they're just transports. You can see that hovering over them. If for some reason anyone takes this land, this ship will be forced to set off and our navy will massacre it. Okay, so looks like France is currently fielding an army of 50,000, maybe more. And Switzerland has got an army of 8,000. It is making me wonder if I should look at mercenaries. So on the production interface, salt crisis is just negative, nothing we can do about it. On the production interface, we can, as well as buy our own troops, or raise them. And we've lost a siege of Labor. We can also go to get some mercenaries. They're all different. They have an initial cost, they have a monthly cost, very expensive. I'm gonna grab this one now while we can. They're quite small. I think that one will actually come with a leader, so it'll save us having to get one. Okay, I think this event means that Aragon is keeping Naples, which means they'll be more powerful, which doesn't help us in the slightest because they don't seem willing to help us. And I suspect we're going to be dropping them as an ally. Worth keeping at the moment, just for what comes next. Looks like Portugal's getting some ideas. I don't think I'd recommend them attacking now though, unless Castile helps. So our castle has fallen, and what France is actually going to do next. So yeah, this is going to hurt us quite badly financially. Any news on Austria? Just manpower. So we're closer to them joining in, but we're not there yet. We can hope. Okay, so this is a danger of not being good relations with the Papal States. The current Curia controller, which I haven't got into, has got Provence excommunicated. We do not want that to happen to us. And the main way to stop it is to be friendly with the Papal States. But at the moment, we really need to keep improving the other countries' opinion of us. In fact, I think we should stop improving Aragon's, because they're not going to help us no matter what we do. And we should start improving Portugal's. Okay, so the new mercenary army, oh good grief, has begun, but they begin with a really low morale. So they cannot win a battle yet, and France was just swooping in to attack them. It looks like we've moved in time. Cool. So we just joined them onto our other troops. They do have a leader, 1-star general, but it just bolsters our troops in the siege by 1. Unfortunately, having a low morale army has affected the overall morale. So I'm still worried that we're going to end up getting attacked. Once the morale recovers, we might want to consider going into battle, especially if they're sieging our castle. I would rather we took Chartres first, to be honest. Be stable. Okay, we get these a lot. We either lose 50 admin power or we lose 10 prestige. Arguably much of a muchness at this point, because we can use admin power to gain 10 prestige, so I might ignore them. Usually I would go along with it, but if we do this, it should fulfill our agenda and give us our prestige back. It's annoying. Yeah, of course. But part of the reason I did that was that it also increases the taxes in London, so it should help us make more money. Whereas if we just lost the admin power as it was, we would have just kept the prestige and not gained the extra tax. So it kind of depends what the penalty is. I mean, losing admin power is terrible, but in this case, I don't know, a lot of the time it's better than the alternative. Not this time though. Okay, I'm just going to pause this because we've got another mission fulfilled. I think this is trustworthy allies. That improves our diplomatic reputation, which is brilliant. So we got that one just because 2 of our allies have joined in with us. In fact, let's start improving Portugal's opinion of us. Okay, right. So this is an opportunity we have. We can either gain some money or we can gain papal influence. I think I might go with papal influence on this occasion. That really is a silly amount of troops. I am very curious as to how France is possibly funding all of that. I know they have a lot of vassals. That does seem insane. Right, this just gives burghers more influence. Nothing we can do about it. Does make me wonder if it would be worth attacking as our best chance to beat them. But then, can we even beat them? There's so many. Even on our castle it doesn't seem feasible. Certainly not until our morale's up to maximum. Okay, so this papacy section. One of the problems with the papacy at the time, apart from the fact that the Pope owned lands and sometimes acted like a nation himself, was that you often found that the Pope was being controlled by a nation for political reasons. So at the moment the Curia Controller, as they call it, is the Papal State itself, which is what it should be. Move that to one side. But anyone, any Catholic country can in theory become the Curia Controller, and you get a lot of benefits for doing it. So you can put, one of the things you can do with papal influence is put it towards becoming the next papal controller whenever the current Pope dies. And generally speaking, the first time when it only costs 5 papal influence is always worth it. So we click this. It says we've got a 100% chance, that's just because no one else has put in yet. It doubles in price every time you do it, so it's a little questionable whether it's worth it the second time, and certainly even more so for succeeding times. But the first time, when you currently have no influence, it's always worth putting in. There's a small chance of becoming the Curia Controller, and there are quite a few benefits. So it's generally worth allotting 5 of your papal influence to that at all times. That will stay in there until the next Pope is crowned, I suppose. Okay, so this is just a random bad event. It's going to reduce our stability by 1 no matter which option we choose, which is really bad news because we're on 0 stability and we have very little administrative power. I think I'll go for I wish I lived in more unlighted times. So we're in big trouble basically until we can raise that back up. So that's a warning that our stability is low. And to boost it, we need 100 administrative power. That's going to take ages. And these are the ill effects we're going to get from it. But there's nothing we can do. Except just wait it out until we've got enough admin power to raise it again. I would like to think that it would have affected everyone else equally, given it's a comet. But as England specifically, stability tends to be a bit of a concern. Okay, so we've finally taken Chartres. I'm going to go and attack immediately, because they've actually just moved a bunch of their troops on the other side of Chartres, so it's possible we might be able to defeat this army before they can catch us with their other armies. I'm not optimistic, and it almost looks like we're losing. So the whole thing is based on morale. You can see it here. It's the green bar going down and being replaced with red. You can also see them here. You can see the die rolls, so who's being luckier. Okay, so we were lucky. And, okay, brilliant. Oh, interesting. They're actually fleeing to Chartres, which is unfortunate for them because that's where we're going, and it means we'll be fighting them on low morale. We should, in theory, instantly win. Okay, I'm going to go for Paris now. So their army will recover from that. But that was good. The fact that we actually won that was brilliant. It was dangerous and could have gone horribly wrong. I'm seriously wondering if it's worth us quickly nipping back and stomping on Sweden, seeing as we haven't really got very far. It's just it should really affect their manpower every time we defeat them, as well as in theory tilting the war score in our favour, which also helps. Oh, one other thing castles do, as well as blocking how you move, they take back land that's next to them. So because this castle is not under siege, it started taking back that land. See, we're not having an easy time of it, even when we're vastly outnumbering them. So right, I'm going to head into Paris, because our next mission is most definitely to try and take Paris. I really wish Austria would come and help us. How can they still have the same amount of manpower? At this rate, we're going to be winning them over with our diplomatic reputation. So I think at some point they will not be willing to join in simply because the war's been going on so long. Seriously struggling to get my head around the amount of troops France is fielding here. Unfortunately, our allies are not being a lot of use. So I'm just comparing how long it's going to take us to take Paris versus how long it's going to take them to take Chartres. And to some extent just marvelling at the size of their army. Well, we've been out of manpower for ages and our army's really struggling to recover. They seem to be in very good shape. There you go. Oh, at least Castile's joined in again. Let's hope we actually stay there this time. Okay, well, I'm not going to change anything now, I don't think. I'm very disinclined to attack these people, even though in some ways I probably should be doing. But there's only so many times I can tell myself this is our best chance to take down this impossibly strong army and still get away with it. So maybe we should just focus on taking Paris and hope that Austria actually joins in, or that Castile makes some progress, and that we can stop fighting this war alone. This has actually been more difficult than I was expecting, I have to say. Especially to say that... Oh, there we go, we've lost Chartres, of course we have. To say that Scotland was not involved. It's been to make me wonder whether I should be recommending this to beginners. I suppose the main thing to remember is it's not the end of the world if you lose, which, to be fair, we still could. It would appear they are happily charging onto Calais now. So yeah, we've made a big attempt to get lots of allies. In the end, the only ones that have so far joined in were Castile and Portugal. And while in theory that would be enough, they're not doing anything much as of yet. They do one bit of work at the beginning and precious little since. Oh! You see, I'm happily moaning about my allies and completely failed to notice that Austria is now willing to join in. Okay, so we've taken Paris. We're going to call to arms for Austria. This should probably win us the war. And we've succeeded here with strategic control, so we've gained a new casus belli called Force Union. So this is what we wanted. This will allow us to subjugate France. For 30 years we now have the option of, in a peace deal, forcing France to accept our king as their king. That will effectively give us control over France. Still very nervous. In some ways I'm almost inclined not to pick a fight. No, it's okay, I'm not going to have the option. It looks like they're going to join in. In which case we probably are going to get severely swatted. No, not yet at least. No, the whole army's coming for us and we're on their castle. So that could well be it for our army. I suppose the question is whether our allies will be willing to finish the job in our absence, or at least while we're rebuilding our army from scratch. Because I'm not sure we've got anywhere to run to, because we approached the castle from that direction. I suppose we could run back to Paris, but they're just going to follow us. Effectively cuts off. Oh no, it is letting us run away. Right, okay, so in that case, let's grab our ship and see if we can possibly... Well, I don't care that much about the mercenaries. Not to be mean or anything, but... No, 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 no. Let me board. Let me board the ship. Why can't I board the ship? Why can't I move? Why can't I do anything? No, apparently not. Apparently we're going to be forced to sit here and all get killed. So, I mean, I can try putting the ship there on the grounds that maybe it's somewhere they could run to, but I think realistically that's just going to exterminate our entire army. Which it has. Right, well, move the ship back down here. That's the only place our ships can actually attack. And... you know what? I think I might finish there. Okay, so... just in the interest of this is not going on too long. So that looks pretty bad, but actually I feel like that isn't too bad. Austria just joined in. I live in hope that eventually that castle will fall and Castile will join in, and maybe even Portugal might, you know, move. And the thing is, now our army is gone, our manpower pool is going to start rising again. So we can start rebuilding our army. We might even be gaining money again. We are, cool. Because one of the things you spend money on is army maintenance. So now we have no army. We should be increasing our funds considerably. So what we will do is we'll start rebuilding an army over in England. And anytime we feel we can make a contribution to the war, we will nip back across the channel and attack. And hopefully, between us and our three big allies, given that Switzerland isn't very big, and if we're lucky, we might be able to persuade them to pull out. I should actually try that now. No, not yet. Not yet, but we will get there. But yeah, hopefully between us and our three allies, we will actually be able to win this war. And we've averted the War of the Roses, so that was something, at least for now. It could still pop up again anytime we don't have an heir. But for now, Henry and Henry are doing okay. We've taken Paris, but we may not hold it for long. I tend to find this a lot, that the computer tends to take their castles back ridiculously easily. I don't know if that's to do with them already having fallen or whether it's just cheating, but either way we can't count on holding Paris, but what we've got is what we needed for subjugation casus belli. In order to actually get that, we're going to need a war score of, I think, 60%. So even though in theory we could finish the war now, and we would probably get some concessions, like maybe a bit of land, and we'd keep Maine, obviously. What we're playing for is France, as much of France as we can take. So that's the plan. We're going to rebuild our army in England, and we have the naval power. They shouldn't be able to attack us. So they can fight our allies, especially Austria, who is fresh to the conflict. And we will be rebuilding our strength. Manpower pool is already high enough for us to gain 1,000 people. At some point we'll be able to boost our stability again, and hopefully we can make a comeback and actually stomp all over France. We will see. But yeah, that's harder than I remember the last few times I've done it. Slightly surprised. Maybe I had less trouble getting Austria to join in the past. Maybe I was even lucky enough to get Aragon to join in, which this time it seems that there's no chance of. I don't think Brittany ever joins in. But yeah, I think... but I still feel like we've been reasonably lucky. I mean, Castile is a good ally to have. Portugal, less so a lot of the time, because they're further away, but they still do help, and they've got some good boats and things. And Austria, now we've got them. Yeah, I think we've been reasonably lucky. Just not as lucky as I have been maybe the last 5 times I played as England. Not to worry. Better this way anyway, so you can see what to do in these circumstances. So this is how we're going to deal with this with England. Basically, anytime we have problems, we will run back across the channel, recover in England. France will probably have nothing to do for a while, once they've taken all of these lands. And they will have to send their armies off to combat Austria and Castile, and any armies they leave behind we can then send our army across the channel and take lands back. So we're just going to make life difficult for them. We've already caused them a certain amount of pain with having won some wars, so hopefully with Austria coming in fresh and Castile not having done much, France is going to struggle a bit to fight them anyway. We will find out next time. But anyway, leave it there for now, and thank you for watching. I'll see you then.